All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our 6th edition BCBA task list series. We are continuing concepts and principles with identified examples of stimulus discrimination. We are going to give some examples, but we're also going to walk through what is stimulus discrimination and then a brief idea or overview of how we would teach stimulus discrimination. Stimulus discrimination, along with response differentiation, is a essential skill, one that should be taught immediately, if not already known. As always, we're going to boil this down to what we think is the most important and key concepts to help you pass your exam and become a better practitioner. Be sure to subscribe if you aren't already for all of our BCBA and RBT content. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. What is stimulus discrimination? Now, the most basic way to think about stimulus discrimination is to think about it if I have a number 1 and a number 2, and I tell you to point to number 2, and you can point to number 2, you can discriminate between stimuli. That is the most basic way to think about stimulus discrimination. Essentially, when one stimulus, the SD, let's call this the SD, signals availability of reinforcement, and the absence of that stimulus, the S delta, which would be the S delta here, signals a 0 or reduced chance of reinforcement, responses will occur more often in the presence of the SD than in its absence. If I say point to 2, you point to 2, and I reinforce you for pointing to 2, it's just logical that you're going to respond when I say point to 2 by pointing to 2 much more frequently than, say, pointing to 1, which is not going to deliver you reinforcement. So stimulus discrimination, along with response differentiation, is often taught using differential reinforcement. You're going to receive reinforcement here, right? And then we're putting this on extinction, differential reinforcement. Stimulus discrimination is a crucial skill to teach to learners if they do not already possess it. Especially if working with high impacted individuals or young individuals, you want to get an idea how well do they discriminate between stimuli at first. If it isn't well, this needs to be a priority. So stimulus discrimination occurs when an individual learns to respond differently in the presence of different stimuli due to a history of reinforcement for specific responses under certain conditions. And this is just a different way to say what we just said. If we have different stimuli, square, triangle, circle, the individual is going to learn to respond differently because some of these may receive reinforcement while others do not. So if I say point to circle and they point to rectangle or square, no reinforcement is going to be delivered, and they're going to stop doing that. They're going to discriminate away from the square into these other shapes. If I say point to square or rectangle, and they do, and I reinforce it, then it's more likely that that's going to happen in the future under that specific condition. So responding occurs specifically in the presence of a stimulus or an SD. If I say point to diamond, there's no diamond, we're not going to expect responding to occur. Responding does not occur or decreases in the presence of a different stimulus. So if I say point to diamond, we have 3 shapes, none are diamonds. We don't expect responding to occur consistently after stimulus discrimination training is done. So another example, a child would choose the blue card when told blue, so our SD, right? And then this is the stimulus, while ignoring the yellow and red card due to a history of reinforcement for selecting blue in the presence of blue. We're just teaching them when to respond and under what conditions. So you can see these are very basic examples, but if you think a little deeper on why that matters, because we're helping the learner understand and develop a skill of understanding what stimuli signals what responses are okay and when they should not engage in certain responses in the presence of certain stimuli. Now, effective stimulus discrimination requires clear distinctions between stimuli and consistent reinforcement histories. We want to be very clear on what is getting reinforced and what isn't. Responses should be repeatedly reinforced in the presence of the stimulus to promote stimulus discrimination. Especially when you're starting, you don't want to be stingy with reinforcement. You really want to promote what your response you want to see in the presence of what stimulus. Stimulus discrimination training can improve the skill. We're about to go over that. So, for example, a child is learning to ask for help only when an adult is present. So, when are we going to deliver reinforcement? Or while the adult's going to give the reinforcement. But when a peer is present, no help seeking behavior is reinforced. The peer becomes the S delta. What response stops in the presence of peer, asking for help? What response continues or increases in the presence of adult, asking for help? We're now discriminating between the adult and the peer and engaging in the response in the appropriate situation. Now, stimulus discrimination is taught through structured training procedures that reinforce correct responding in the presence of a specific stimulus and withhold reinforcement in the presence of others. Everything we just talked about is what we're going to be doing. It's essentially just differential reinforcement, where you are reinforcing some things and putting other things on extinction. When we do this enough, we're going to teach, or the learner is going to learn, right? With operant behavior and operant conditioning, we're going to learn when to respond and when not to. So you want to present the SD and reinforce the correct response. Do not provide reinforcement in the presence of the stimulus delta. You want to be clear and distinct at the beginning. You want to remove prompts as quickly as possible. And errorless learning early on can help avoid mistakes. A couple key takeaways. I know this is a more dense technique, right? Or idea or concept. But once you get it down and you understand just what we're doing, right, it's going to really click. Just remember differential reinforcement teaches stimulus discrimination and response differentiation. Stimulus discrimination, we're just picking between different stimuli and responding differently in the presence of those stimuli. Critical skill to teach, if not already known, avoid reinforcement in the presence of the stimulus delta. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you aren't already. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard,